live and on your side. This is KTBS 3 News at 6.
Good evening, I'm Jerry May.
And I'm Brenda Till. Thank you for joining us for KTBS 3 News at 6. We begin our newscast with a Mega 3 Storm Team yellow weather alert. We wanted fall, Jerry.
Here it is.
Here it is. Arklatex has been seeing some fog. We've seen gray skies, and we've seen the rain.
Yeah, quite a bit of rain. Let's take a look outside right now. You see the radar. Lots of rain coming down still across northern Louisiana. Fortunately, it looks like it's pretty much pushed away from Shreveport-Bossier there, as you see on that DOTD camera right there. But we're going to check in with Joe Haynes to find out if we could get some more rain tonight.
Well, it's possible that we could, but with all the rain that we've seen so far, the rain-cool effects may limit how much more we see, which does bode well, because if we do get too much more, we're going to have some flooding problems. So far, we've done pretty well, considering no watches, warnings, or advisories concerning flooding or any severe thunderstorm of that nature. Pretty good lightning strikes, though, over in the Ruston area. The thunderstorm complex now moving across northern Louisiana. Thins out pretty good as you head back to the north and west. A few thunderstorms trying to work into the northern part of the Arklatex. All the heavy rain that we've had in the El Dorado area, 4+ inches. Well, moving out a little bit up toward Camden right now, trying to work your way, so you're not totally finished. This thunderstorm was severe earlier, but now it's playing out because it's moving into a little rain-cooled atmosphere. Shreveport and Bossier, we're done. Looks like for the next several hours. Northern Louisiana, it's mainly the eastern sections as the storms are rolling through with big heavy rains. Scattered in nature across Toledo Bend, but not as much as what you'll see up from Natchitoches over toward the Ruston and Monroe areas. No watches, warnings, or advisories to tell you about. And it looks like a bit of a break for the evening, and then we could see some late tonight. How much of the Arklatex will see that rain? We'll talk about it in your 7-day forecast here in just a few minutes.
See you then. Thank you, Joe.
Okay.
A Shreveport family is still in a mess with the sewer department.
The evidence that showed that it was what flooded my home was debris and toilet paper all the way at the top of the main. So that means not only did it come into my home, but it came out into the environment.
So that was Tiffany Thompson 3 weeks ago when we first showed you her story. She says her North Highland home has been flooded in raw sewage since May. And Tiffany and her husband say they are absolutely fed up and they want help from the city. And that's why they're taking their fight to the sewer board. That meeting is underway right now. Allison Lorraine has stepped out to join us with more on this. Allison.
Hey Jerry, this was the first time Tiffany Thompson and her husband came to address them face to face to talk about these issues they've been facing. A lot of this was news to me, some of the things she mentioned tonight, which including feces that was floating in her home. She's got 2 little boys, one years old, one I believe 7, and it's been really hard on the family. She says both the boys have asthma and they have to use breathing ventilators to help them, and they can't afford to buy a new home or relocate. So it's really hard on them right now. They addressed the board for the first time today, but unfortunately there was no comments that could be made from the board because there's lawyers involved on both sides of this. So it's kind of a waiting game from here. I think they're stepping out of the meeting any minute. They should be by now, so we will let you know what happens. Jerry.
All right, Allison, do that. We appreciate that. What an awful situation they're in there. Appreciate the update.
A town in Bienville Parish is dealing with financial troubles. To fix that, the mayor of the town of Arcadia laid off 4 employees and moved 3 jobs to part-time positions. KTBS 3's Dominique Brokel joins us live from their Arcadia Outlet Mall. And Dominique, is the mall one of the reasons Arcadia is letting people go?
Well, Brenda, Mayor Orlandis Milliken tells me that this is a major part of the town's financial issues, and he's already talked to a realtor about listing it for sale. And this isn't the only piece of property. The mall, 43 acres of land, and a drive-through commercial bank, all owned by the town, are for sale. Mayor Milliken hopes this, along with many other ideas, can help replenish the reserves. He tells me the town isn't in debt, but the recent audit report highlighted major losses. So Milliken had to make some tough choices. The recent audit showed a loss of more than $200,000 in the water department and a loss of $114,000 here at the Outlet Mall. The mall also needs a new roof and parking lot.
You know, leadership brings about, having to make tough decisions. And one of those tough decisions was having to lay people off. I can say that's been my toughest decision within these past 10 months. Being the mayor of Arcadia, as well as, in life, being 27 years old, this was one of the toughest decisions I had to make.
It came as a shock to me. I understood that we were, in financial difficulties, and I knew we were, trying to stay afloat and keep our head above water. But I did not think we were at the point where we were going to have to start laying people off, so quickly. And I definitely didn't think I was going to be one of those components to get laid off. And it was more of a shock that he just, caught us in and just laid us off, no week notice or 2 week notice.
Smart tells me he's actually still searching for a job. This is still some new news for him. But he does tell me he's not mad at the mayor. He understands the mayor had to do what he had to do. He still considers Mayor Milliken his friend, and Mayor Milliken says the same about many of the people that he had to lay off. Live in Arcadia, Dominique Brogel, Ktbs 3 News.
Tough on both sides for them there. Thank you, Dominique. The town is also planning to change water system charges. Louisiana Rural Water Association encouraged the town to increase water bills from a $10 flat rate to a $12 flat rate. Mayor Milliken says that issue could come up at the next council meeting in November, as well as unsealing bids on the bank and open land.
The Bossier City Council is expected to vote on the budget for the next year. Last week, they approved their first reading on a $59 million spending plan. Our Roxette Pietri-Freeman has been at today's meeting. So, Roxette, anything other than the budget discussed so far?
Well, yes, Jerry, the budget was approved, which means that this is good news for Bossier residents because they basically have kept their budget since the year 2017. So this translates Bossier residents will not have to pay for any state taxes or any other fees. That's good news. However, they did discuss another thing, and it's that fence that divides that Walmart and Kroger's. If you've ever been to those on Airline Drive, you've noticed that huge fence that divides those parking lots. Well, it's all about public safety, and they decided to approve a budget of $150,000 to remove that fence and connect those parking lots. As of right now, if you've been to, again, either that Walmart or that Kroger, and if you want to go to either of those parking lots, you have to go back on the main street on Airline and then cross the road to go to the other parking lot. Of course, this is a safety concern, and even the DOTD wrote a letter in favor of this construction.
It's a public safety issue is really what it boils down to not have to go back onto Airline or back onto the street to get into the other parking lot, when you can traverse at those lower speeds within the parking lot to get to the other store to do your shopping. It's just going to make for safer roads.
Now, Jerry, the vote was unanimous, and construction work should start this Thursday, and it should only take about a few months. But of course, that depends on Mother Nature. We've seen a lot of rain today, and that depends if we're going to continue to see a lot of rain. It's fall, and we asked for it, like you guys were saying, so it all depends on Mother Nature. Back to you.
But hopefully the end of those whip-arounds on Airline coming to an end pretty soon. Thanks a lot, Roxette.
Some area seniors may not have access to all the services at the Bossier Council on Aging. That's after several vehicles were broken into over the weekend. Executive Director Tamara Crane says that their vehicles were damaged so severely, they may not be able to pick up some of their clients for several weeks. Crane says the vehicles were stolen, damaged, and returned. The Bossier Council on Aging gives rides to seniors, taking them to their site every day for recreation, wellness checks, and exercise and meals, along with taking them to medical appointments. The band serves seniors in rural areas like Plain Dealing and Benton.
And happening now, a $2,000 reward is now being offered for information in the disappearance of a woman from Gregg County, Texas. So take a look here. This is Rosemary Rodriguez. The sheriff's office believes criminal activity may be involved in her disappearance. Call them if you have info.
The DeSoto Parish Sheriff's Office also needs your help finding a man who vanished. 61-year-old Larry Dean Simpson's family last heard from him on the 8th, almost a week ago. The Sheriff's Office says he's been suffering from depression. He's 6 feet tall and weighs 215 pounds. He drives a white Ford F-150 with a toolbox in the bed that does not close correctly. His license plate number is C829014. If you know where either of these people are, call authorities.
We have some sad news about one of our great veterans in the Arklatex. William Travis Moore died after a fire at his home north of Dixie Inn. The World War II veteran and former prisoner of war suffered burns when a blaze broke out in his kitchen Saturday morning. Authorities say he died early yesterday of a heart attack while undergoing treatment at a Shreveport hospital. This was Mr. Moore just last month when he was presented with an American flag at a POW MIA Remembrance Day ceremony. Moore had survived the downing of his B-17 bomber over Germany. He was a gunner. He was taken prisoner, and he endured harsh conditions until the Nazi prison camp was liberated. William Travis Moore was 97, and I sat down with him right there in that kitchen a couple of times to hear his story. And he's one of those guys, grew up with nothing, went and served our country bravely, and just came back home and lived a humble life. He was a gunsmith there on his property, and he's just one of the many from that generation that we owe our freedom to.
Yeah. It's different when you know him.
Definitely. And, just saw him last month.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's a real-life story of domestic violence. And up next, we take a look back at DeSoto Parish's worst mass murder ever and how one person is using that tragedy to help victims. And we're continuing to watch a line of storms moving through the area. Joe's tracking it all and has an update on how much rain we can expect later in the newscast.
Now, KTBS 3 News continues.
October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and according to the most recent statistics from the U.S. Department of Justice, Louisiana ranks second in the nation in domestic violence deaths. Project Celebration hosted an Unmasking Domestic Violence breakfast and silent auction at Diamond Jack's Casino this morning. There's our Luana Munoz. She was guest speaker there. And this was all to raise awareness of resources for victims of domestic violence.
This is our third annual Unmasking Domestic Violence auction breakfast, and we have auction items. All those proceeds will go directly to our women at the shelter, as well as outreach for non-residential residents. And this is to bring more awareness to domestic violence in our area.
And for more information on Project Celebration, just go to ktbs.com.
And before there was a Domestic Violence Awareness Month or week, a 12-year-old boy witnessed its wrath. Jason Richardson didn't fully understand what he was seeing 25 years ago or how he was somehow connected to it. It was the scene of the worst mass murder ever in DeSoto Parish.
Investigators say DeSoto Parish has never seen such a mass murder.
I don't know if we've ever had one of this multiple victims.
Jason Richardson remembers the mass murder. He was at the movies with his parents, who are in law enforcement. They had to leave the movie early.
And I still vividly remember every sight that I saw.
At around 9:30 p.m. on July 23, 1994, James Baldwin drove to J.O. Woodfin's home.
Armed with a sawed-off shotgun to punish his estranged wife and anyone helping her.
He shot and killed his estranged wife and 3 men. Jason was just 12 years old.
And literally watched one of the men as he was dying, and then vividly recall a friend of mine's father that I played ball with at that time that was one of the victims as well.
2 of Woodfin's young children witnessed the shooting.
They hid here in a fort they had built behind his trailer house. Then when the shooting finally stopped, they ran across the road to get help from neighbors.
We was in the house and the 2 little boys they come running through the woods over there, hollering, "My daddy's dead, my daddy's dead, he's been shot."
It was a crime of passion. Baldwin's wife, Elizabeth, filed criminal complaints for domestic violence and battery.
That's what brought her over here. He beat the hell out of her.
After 8 years of marital strife and violence, she was finally leaving.
Actually, that night, I identified the 4 people.
Carol Sue Richardson knew Baldwin's wife. They talked just days before.
I said, if you don't get away, he's going to kill you.
Carol Sue knew the signs because she was a victim of domestic violence in her first marriage to James Baldwin, the convicted killer.
But when I was looking at her, it was like, this could have been me.
Carol Sue and Baldwin were married about 6 years.
Throughout the whole time I was with him, I never once reported the first thing.
She tried leaving 6 times.
One of the times, he didn't even know I left because I left and I was back before he even got back to the house.
She was afraid and she felt guilty. Experts say that's common among domestic violence victims.
If I wouldn't have said this or I wouldn't have done that, he wouldn't have done that. It's my fault.
The last time he hit her, she was holding their infant son.
It was all about the little sticker on the license plate. I had gotten it, but I had not put it on it. And I had Jason in my arms, and when he reared back to hit me, because it made him mad, and I threw my head back, he hit him. And that was the last day I stayed with him.
Her son, Jason, who was 11 months old at the time, is now the sheriff of DeSoto Parish.
We deal with domestic violence much differently today.
Sheriff Richardson understands it can be frustrating and dangerous when an officer is responding to a domestic violence call.
You go to the same location multiple times, and you give opportunities and options for somebody to get out, and you don't understand why they keep going back.
Once his mother did leave, she had to go from one relative's home to another. DeSoto Parish now has a safe place for victims.
Many times they're scared to leave simply because they don't have anywhere to go. Well, that's not true. They have places to go, and we're here to make sure that they know where those places are at.
Looking at her son now, her decision to leave didn't just save her life, it changed his.
For his biological dad to be where he is, and then for him to be where he is. And he is, you know, he's got a heart of gold.
His biological father is on death row. They want victims of domestic violence to know there's hope.
No matter what you've been told or what has been said to you to make you feel like maybe you're worthless or no one else would have you, that's not the case.
There is a way. There is an out.
And according to a report by the National Institute of Health, 1 in 4 women and 1 in 9 men are victims of domestic violence. But the number could be much higher because it's considered to be underreported.
Wow, amazing how the Richardsons are all tied in to that story.
Yeah, and how he turned out. His mom is most proud of how he turned out to be the sheriff. And because so often domestic violence is repeated by the child. Not the case here. There is hope.
Good for him. All right. Thank you, Brenda. Great story there. Well, again, it's been raining all across the Arklatex.
Oh, boy, has it. We even heard a few claps of thunder earlier. So will we see any severe weather tonight? Joe's tracking all the storms for us, and he has the forecast after this break.
Now, with the latest developments in the world of medicine, this is Health Watch 3.
Planning to have surgery? Well, skip the pain medication if you really don't need it. Researchers at the University of Pennsylvania have found that opioid pain medications are being overprescribed for short-term pain after low-risk procedures. They looked at low-risk procedures like routine appendix removal, gallbladder, and breast lump removal, as well as knee repairs. All of these are associated with short-term pain and may not require opioid medications at all. The overprescribing of pain medications seems to be worse in the United States and Canada than in other countries. Researchers say opioid prescriptions are 7 times higher in the U.S. and Canada compared to Sweden. And Jerry, the study suggests that doctors have a role in fueling the opioid epidemic and are potentially prescribing unneeded medication. So stay on the alert and skip the pills if you have no ills.
Can remember that phrase for sure.
All right,
Brenda, thanks. And on that note, it's been a week since federal authorities raided a Texarkana clinic and accused a local physician of overprescribing opioids. Police say the arrest will take a significant number of drugs off the streets, but they're now concerned about its direct impact on the community. KTBS 3's Julie Parr joins us live from outside the police department. Julie, how are they addressing those concerns?
Well, Jerry, police are worried with a source of opioids taken off the street that addicts may turn to the medicine cabinets of their friends and family. That's why they're urging people to be cautious and keep their medications locked up and monitored. Last week, the Drug Enforcement Administration raided primary care specialist on East 24th Street and arrested Dr. Lonnie Parker. According to the indictment, Dr. Parker prescribed about 1.2 million dosages of opiates to about 1,500 patients.
When we can get the folks that are not doing it the way it needs to be done, and we can get them out of the equation, it helps create a better atmosphere for everybody.
There are 3 medication drop boxes located in the Texarkana area, including the Bi-State Justice Building, Texarkana Emergency Center, and the Miller County Sheriff's Office. Unused or unwanted prescriptions can be dropped off at any of those locations anytime. Jerry.
And anonymously, too. No questions asked there. Julie, thank you. And police will also be taking part in a drug take-back day. That's coming up Saturday, October 26th, 10 to 1 at Texarkana Emergency Center. Police say you can help prevent pill abuse and theft by ridding your homes of potentially expired, unused, and unwanted prescription drugs. The service is free and, again, anonymous.
Well, some of us keep an eye on the sky in order to catch a glimpse of the mighty B-52 bomber. This aircraft plays an important role in war because of the weapons it carries. But did you know it's not the pilots who drop the bombs? Our Roxette Pietri-Freeman has more.
The B-52 aircraft is known for its loud roar and booms. Many think the pilots are in charge of dropping bombs, but in reality, they just fly the plane. It's the navigators who make all the noise.
We are the ones who drop the bombs, and the pilots help us do it.
The B-52 is one of the oldest aircraft in the Air Force's inventory. The plane was built in the 1950s, before GPS was invented. That's why the plane has 2 specific seats for aircrew to do this job.
The pilots play an important role. They're the ones who drive us to our destination. We tell them where to go, how fast to go, and what route to take. And their job is to put us inside parameters to be able to safely employ our weapons.
The B-52 has 2 decks. The top deck is for the pilot and co-pilot. Also facing backwards is the electronic warfare officer. They basically defend the plane from any threats. On the lower deck, you'll find the offense compartment. This is where the navigators work. The right seat is for the navigator. They're in charge of navigation and ensuring the bombs arrive on time.
You can think of him as a human GPS. He's the one who tells the pilot to speed up, slow down, turn left, turn right.
The left seat is for the radar navigators. They are the ones who drop the bombs.
The person on the left seat, what I'm saying right now, is called the radar navigator position. That person is in charge of employing weapons and anything to do with dropping bombs and employing weapons and doing it within parameters to be safe.
Captain Riff says when it comes to dropping bombs, it's basically like playing a video game.
In the radar navigator station, you have these screens here. You usually have a radar scope here that is scanning the front of the airplane where we're flying to. And here, we usually have a moving map display. Here, we have the screen to show the targeting pod picture or video. You control the targeting pod with this, basically like a big joystick, and you use it to employ weapons.
There's much more to it, so I got a quick lesson. This is dropping a bomb 101. What do I have to do, sir?
Choose a location.
Okay, I'm gonna pick left.
Then a station.
Can I drop all bombs?
Sure,
all
if you
stations? All right, all stations.
And now you would either need to unlock first.
Unlock.
And to launch is manual launch button right there.
All right, and I lift this, and I'm dropping all bombs.
Yeah.
But this job has a downside, getting queasy.
You really don't have a window, so you tend to get airsick until you get used to the movement.
Captain Riff says some remedies are ginger, oranges, and even mint. But the best cure is the pride of flying in the B-52 bomber.
It is a plane meant to be a weapons systems officer's dream.
Roxette Pietri-Freeman, Ktbs 3 News.
The mighty B-52.
Yeah, interesting look inside there. Big plane, but kind of cramped quarters.
Yeah.
In there for those guys. That was interesting.
Goodness, yeah. Glad you took us inside.
Yeah. Well, the 2020 race for the White House is heating up tonight.
Up next, we'll take a look at the 4th Democratic presidential debate and what we're likely to see.
And we're hearing from Hunter Biden for the first time since President Trump asked China and Ukraine to investigate him and his father. Those stories and more coming up. The father of a Fort Worth woman killed by a police officer in her own home says her death is truly senseless. The man who shot Tatiana Jefferson has now been charged with murder. As Aaron Jones reports, the family is still trying to come to terms with their loss.
Her mother called me yesterday morning. She said Tay was shot
Marquise Jefferson waking up to learn his only daughter was dead.
I mean, it's senseless. My daughter was 28 years old, had her whole life in front of her.
Around 2 a.m. Saturday morning, Fort Worth police arrived at Tatiana Jefferson's house for a welfare check after her neighbor called them concerned her front door was open.
And I don't have nothing against the neighbor. I mean, hey, if he sees something going over that house with my daughter, you need to call the police. You know what I'm saying? But it's the way the police acted.
In the body cam video, you see an officer walk through Jefferson's backyard to a bedroom window where she was standing.
Put your hands up, show me your hands.
Not even a full second later, she was shot.
You got to know that there's somebody's daughter, somebody loved her, and it was a better way. It didn't have to be like that.
Jefferson thankful for their final words.
I texted her, said I love her, and she texted me back, said I love you too.
The two shared a very special bond.
When she was growing up, I read to her a lot. I bought her a lot of books. Ooh, she loved to read. She reads all the time. Her mother tell me she in there reading.
Reading fueled her passion for learning.
Hi, my name is Tatiana Jefferson, and I'm doing lab exercise 5.
Jefferson going on to get a pre-med degree from Xavier University. Currently, she was working in pharmaceutical equipment sales, saving up for medical school.
She had hopes, she had dreams, she had aspirations. We've lost them for no reason. I've seen many cases like this where you think that they would have learned from it.
I like this Bolton, John, G. I don't want no hug. That's my one and only daughter. I'll never forget this.
The Jeffersons say they want Fort Worth police to advance their training so no other family has to go through this.
The evacuation zone has expanded around the construction site of the Hard Rock Hotel in New Orleans. Part of the building collapsed Saturday, killing 3 people and injuring 30 more. Now the New Orleans fire chief says both cranes are damaged and in danger of collapsing. He also says the cranes are making search and rescue more difficult.
The only update is what I touched on, that we believe we've got a little bit more pinpointed to a particular area that's collapsed up on the upper decks that you can see. And so that's where we're concentrating all of our efforts at this time. We have cameras and we have listening devices. There are quite a few voids in there, which on one hand gives us hope. On the other hand, you know, it is what it is. They need to methodically go about safely searching those voids, and that's what we're doing now.
The city has expanded the evacuation zone past Canal Street between Burgundy Street and Elk Place. City leaders say the investigation into the collapse will begin once search and rescue wraps up.
Delicate situation right there. All right, Joe's back with another check on what that rain could do this evening. Stay with us.